Welcome to a special EP edition of Wrecked. I'm Daniel Allen Lazarus here with
Alison.
Alison. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm hanging in there.
Yeah, me too. Excellent. What are we talking about today?
We're doing, like you said, this special EP edition because we're kind of being biased and only picking our favorite EPs since there's a billion of them. And we're doing our first one we're going to do is No Use for Your Name, The Daily Grind.
And that's one of my favorite EPs.
Yes.
I love No Use for Your Name. Of course, that is because they are hometown heroes out of San Jose, California.
Yeah.
My home city, which I would love to move back to at some point in my life.
Yes.
But let's talk about this. This album came out in 1993. It is the first release by No Use for a Name on Fat Records. And in my opinion, a very important album for No Use for a Name, not just because of its release on Fat, but because it's sort of, they enter a period where I consider that where they've really found their sound. And that sound becomes a cornerstone of Fat Records.
I think it's really interesting, like some of the earlier Fat bands, because they seem to be very cherry picked, but they're not kind of all the same either. And I would say this is more of a hardcore edge for Fat Records at this period of time.
Yeah, a little bit. If you listen to the first two No Use for a Name albums, they're really like kind of finding their sound still, in my opinion, right? So Tony Sly came on. He wasn't the only vocalist on the first record. By the time they released their second album, he was. But the band as a band, they weren't very like tight musically yet, and that kind of all coalesced, I believe, with The Daily Grind, where not only did they have a sound that you could like tell right off the bat, it's No Use for a Name, but musically they really started to vibe together as a very like tight, musicianship.
Yeah, I think they've always been really good musicians. And I think, honestly, No Use for a Name has some of the best songwriting, like really good structure as far as like it, obviously musically, but even lyrically, they just got better and better,
Oh, lyrically, so when we get into later No Use albums, lyrically, they're just outstanding. And musically, the songwriting just goes up in a lot of different ways. Tony's voice like changes, it evolves. No Use for a Name is one of these bands that every album sounds a little bit different. So if you listen to their first album and then you listen to their last album, you would be like, what?
Yeah, it almost doesn't feel like the same band. Yeah, but I like that it's not boring and they're always kind of doing something different and building rather than just kind of honing it in.
It's very much a band, like it's like a gradual evolution over time. So like you listen to The Daily Grind and then you listen to Leche Con Carne and you're like, oh, this is the same band.
Yeah.
Right. But then like I said, over time, like everything really, really changes. So one thing I would really like to say, and just my personal take as a No Use fan, when people talk about political punk rock, people don't bring up No Use for a Name.
Yeah,
right?
But they very much are.
Like they have so many songs that are about the times that they live in, and every song, every album has songs that are political. And so when we talk about some of these tracks today, we'll see that, and it's like I said, it's very, very much about like the times.
Yeah, I was thinking about that like last night, and they are very political, but I want to say they're almost like realist political. Like,
yeah, there's sort of like the common person.
Yeah, if they gave a shit, like, and had like some background information on some issues. Right.
You're not getting this very highbrow, Bad Religion commentary,
propaganda level stuff, but
or propaganda who is hitting it on the head with like theory, or even like a Dead Kennedys sarcastic,
yeah, it's
and
almost more
that.
relatable in that way, because it's like if you or I were talking about something just very broadly, like
Very
like homelessness was like a big theme in this, but we're like, okay,
right.
you
Very beer and pretzels
ticks,
politics.
yeah. And
Right.
but I think that makes it a lot more digestible and a lot easier for people to think about, because it isn't so wordy, isn't so heavy, but like makes you really kind of care in a good way.
Yeah. I kind of wish that's how people talked about politics today.
Yeah.
They don't. Everything is so partisan.
Yeah.
Right. So, but why don't we, as they say,
Mhm.
let's get right into it,
Yeah.
right? So I'm looking right now. This album was released May 31st, 1993. Hard to believe this album is almost 30 years old. It was produced by Don Cameron, Fat Mike, and Pat Coughlin. This is an EP, and it is just shy of 22 minutes long.
I was thinking about that today because it's recorded really interesting to me, because either they kind of wrote the songs to blend in together, or that might be something the engineer made as a choice to kind of like blend it.
It's a possibility. I feel like it kind of goes with the songwriting style and ultimately the overall sort of arc of how their career goes.
I mean, they could choose not to put the like 3 seconds in between each song, but for some reason, like even the first 3 songs just blend so well. I'm just like, damn.
Right.
Yeah, I was like, so 20 minutes seems really fitting for this. I was like, they could have probably put another like a minute or two in it if they wanted to separate the tracks more, but they kind of didn't, which was an interesting choice.
I always liked when bands do that though, where it's just sort of like, it's just like it goes and you're like boom, and you're like on, and like the whole record is just like almost I don't want to say one song.
It's super hard to do though. That's what I'm saying. Like when I do hear it done well, I'm just like, wow, that was just effortless and nice.
Reminds me a little bit of Suffer in that way, where the first several tracks, where almost the whole album is like I don't want to like go off into a tangent, but very quickly, that album Suffer, I can't listen to just one song. I listen to the whole album. But that's what
I kind of like about this one is like, especially for an EP, you're like, it's it's going to be shorter, but it just seems like, oh, I've already went through half the album already.
So the first track on here is, and we were talking about politics, right? This is called Until It's Gone, right? That's the first track. But this is about the environment, right? And this is a pressing concern more so today than it was back then. When I look at the lyrics of these songs, I can't help but think about where I came from, San Jose, where they are. Buildings will replace the trees, pollution will replace the air we breathe, the first 2 lines. And growing up in that city, I grew up in a place where it had been orchards, right? Like cherry tree orchards, peach trees, or apricots, just various fruit trees. Over time, those orchards dwindled until there's no orchards left, right? There's none left in San Jose, I don't think. But I grew up while they were being, while city development was like really at its peak in the Silicon Valley.
Oh yeah, that's changed immensely.
Yeah, exactly. So I think of these songs, right? He says, "I'm close to the mountain, just miles away." Right? I know what mountain they're talking about. But I can't see the hills from here today. San Jose sometimes has bad pollution.
I think that was like a big thing in the 90s. Remember, like seeing stuff from LA, and they're like, yeah, you have like ozone action days and stuff like that. So I'm pretty sure that's
I don't know about
kind
Texas,
of what they're referring to.
But in California, we have spare the air days.
We started to later in like the mid 2000s. started doing that.
I feel like in
not
Texas
right away.
that would be a very hard thing to legislate, because like, for example, on a spare the air day, you generally, when it's warm out, right, you can't have a barbecue, you can't cook out, like that's actually like a law.
We only have burn bans, and that's it, really. It's more of a suggestion, most things
But
nowadays.
this song,
Sucks.
it's very relevant still, and that is why this is just another reason why this record is important and relevant.
I was thinking, like, I think the song has a really good like alliteration of the lyrics, like the way it kind of lists things off, or like kind of paints that picture. And also it sounds really silly, but it reminds me of the story of like the Lorax.
Right. The Lorax, a classic.
Yeah, I still want a Lorax tattoo. I'm really silly like that. But I also think the song also really does a really good mix of like old school hardcore and kind of skate punk too. Like, I feel like it's kind of a really good swirl of both too. But I kind of like, my favorite lyric of the whole thing is probably the last part, where it's like, it seems like a letter we can't send. It says, feels like an aluminum we can't bend. Like, you see all these things and they're such big evasive problems, and you're like, I'm one person, like, how am I supposed to solve these things? Is it a solvable puzzle kind of thing? And I was like, I think that's really relatable, you know.
I think it's a solvable puzzle. My opinion is that our country is not equipped to handle it because of the political atmosphere. Right, like I don't think that this particular version of America can handle it, and I don't know if anybody can. I kind of feel like it's one of those things where you actually have to like force people to make these changes, and when I see people, I mean like mostly corporations, because they're not going to do it. And the fact that you have so many people that are like, no, you can't tell corporations what to do, because they're like propagandized into thinking that corporations equal freedom, which I don't think that's also true.
No.
Right, like I don't believe that's true at all. I feel those lyrics as well, like deeply. It's like, feels like aluminum we cannot bend. To me, it's like, well, no, we could do it if we really wanted to. If we had those priorities, we could do it.
That's what I'm saying, especially like the aluminum thing. It's like, normally one person could do it, but this is like something kind of that seems like reachable and solvable, but for some reason it doesn't feel that way it's either.
It's sad. It's sad, but like, I think it's a great
really
start
works
to this record.
And I'm like a staunch recycler or minimalist person, so I try so hard, but I'm probably only,
and even then, like, the worst pollution isn't from people like you and me. Like, it's like these, it's like factories and giant businesses that just, you know, they would rather make an extra dollar than anything else. Great start to an album. Again, very beer and pretzels politics, where it's like, hey, we have to learn from our big mistakes. But, you know, some people just don't believe in global warming or climate change. That's a whole other like story. Right, like, we have all these statistics and, you know, evidence, but, you know. The next song, this is a sad song.
Next song,
right? It's very much about like addiction, right? This is about a little bit. I mean,
I think so. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it is. Yeah, towards the end,
it's about how success doesn't necessarily mean you're successful as well, right? Or money doesn't mean you're successful, I guess, or ease of life. Old What's His Name is the track.
Yeah. I thought it was maybe like, I mean, I think it's a very simplistic view of how much of a slippery slope of going into homeless is. You know, like, it could just be like, hey, yeah, I have an addiction, or hey, I just had a circumstance happen and then here I am. You know, I think it's kind of a simplistic song about that. You're like, one day you're chilling, trying to do your daily thing, and then bam.
The interesting line here is there's a line that says, and now he's holding a cardboard sign that says, I'm not the one to blame. In homelessness, which is a super complex social issue where I don't think necessarily that any individual homeless person is 100% to blame for their homelessness.
Oh no, there's too many
Right.
socioeconomic
But that is a
structures to
very
make that
common
happen.
belief,
Like,
is that homeless people are homeless because they want to be
yeah,
homeless, or
or
they're
they didn't try hard enough, or like a lot
the
of things.
picture this song paints is a successful businessman who starts like hitting the bottle a little too hard, and then like loses all of it because of that. And I don't know if that says more about like
Yeah.
the stress that sort of world puts on a human being. Like you said, it is a
Oh
simple
god, yeah.
a simple look at homelessness and the slippery slope. But I do think there is something to the fact that there are jobs or careers that people take that are awful. And in
Yeah.
order to cope, they do things like drink.
Well, I mean, it's probably why a lot of like veterans are homeless, is because of like that's a stressful ass job.
That and PTSD, which stops people from functioning, in regular society, especially after they were killers.
Yeah, and those people are definitely considered successful in the military while they're in it before all that junk kind of happens. So I mean,
Sure.
very similar. It's like, oh yeah, you can have a career and this family and things, and then it doesn't necessarily end that way.
This is not necessarily my favorite song on the album.
I would say it's a little too simplistic for such a complicated problem in my mind, but it definitely
it's
fits.
Very good.
I think it fits the album really well, though. So I can't really say like you could love it or hate it, but I'm like, no, it fits in the theme. It fits in the album really well. So
Well, and the album is called The Daily Grind, right? It's almost, everyone's like, oh, I got to get my grind on these days, right? Like, where did that term come from? And it was sort of back when, the grind wasn't necessarily something you looked forward to. Like,
oh God, no. Yeah. I'm always like, I'm a grinder and a hustler like all day, all night, but I absolutely hate it.
There's some things that I love to grind on.
Yeah.
Right. And then there's other things like my normal day job where I'm like,
yeah, like I hate being good at things.
Right.
I hate being an overachiever, but I can't stop it. It just, that's who I am. And so I'm just like, yeah, I burn out quite a bit because of stuff like that. So I'm like, if I didn't have to do all this shit, I'd be doing, I would still be grinding on other things, but I think way more enjoyable things, or at least I'd have time to step away.
Yeah.
At least time to time, which I try to do.
Well, you always, here's the thing, you always have to like take time for yourself, that self-care. And if you don't, because there's some people who think that they should always be grinding, and I don't think so. I think you need days off, and I think you have to take time to do things for yourself that aren't like,
as I was saying, like it's good to have goals. I think it's good to be successful, but yeah, like success means a lot different things to different people. And yeah, like in this album specifically, they talk about that kind of like bar,
right?
I think it's the standard, like, okay, you have a job, you want a house, you want to do those things, and it's like, but kind of at what cost, or like, what does that really mean to you, kind of thing.
The cost of your soul.
Oh God. Let's talk about Permanent Rust. That's probably one of my favorite songs on here.
Yes, sure. Absolutely. Permanent Rust is an amazing song.
Yeah.
And it has some of the best lyrics on
I think so too. I really love the line, "She was corruption and I was destruction." Like that, just like a one sentence sum up of a really toxic relationship.
Right?
In a really eloquent way. Plus, like the opening is like, I don't know, like 30 seconds of just like, we're gonna
amazing bread and fucking music. Yeah. No, this musically and lyrically, this could be my favorite song on the album. Maybe besides Feeding the Fire, which are probably my two favorite on this record.
Yeah, same.
But yes, this whole song is about, like you said, a toxic relationship. But then there's other, like, here's a great line. She was dead in my mind, but her ghost was still around. Like, how many times have you got, I don't know, but I've been out of relationships where I'm like, I don't want to think about this person ever again. And then like one day I'm sitting there and it's like, well shit. Why, damn it.
I think I appreciate the song because it is about a toxic relationship, but it's not real blamey or finger pointing. Like, it's just kind of like the cycle of it, like that you're going through, rather than like it's not whiny. I guess is what I'm trying to say. It's kind of more thoughtful of like, why isn't this over in my mind, kind of thing, which I appreciate.
And that's nice. No Use for a Name isn't a whiny band, you know. They're definitely not like that, like, category of punk rock.
Yeah, because they are very insightful and very emotional. I actually can't listen to No Use all the time because it is so emotional, and if I can't handle that all the time. But yeah, I do like the fact that it's not like, woe is me, or why shouldn't she like me, or, you know, it's like, why didn't she like me, but here are some reasons I've kind of thought about why maybe she doesn't, or something, you know. It's just a little more insightful.
Yeah, musically this one just kills it as well. Like you said, that intro is like fantastic.
It's stupid.
It's so good. No, it's so good.
Okay, I'm gonna let you know I really kind of don't like Biomag that much.
Biomag is like a joke song, I feel like.
I know.
Like they throw it like right in the middle of like this record. Like it's right between Permanent Rust and Countdown, which is like not the collapse of society, but like all these sort of society problems hitting at once. And like it's maybe they needed a breather themselves, you know. But like Biomag is just sort of this joke song about like,
I was like, is it about being like a scummy young punk or something?
I think so. This is like one of those songs again, like I could see this person in San Jose in the mid-90s at punk shows, like totally just like these people bumming for smokes, just want to get drunk at the show, like getting into the show and just like moshing, not giving a fuck about anything. The last verse is the one that like gets me the most. You wanted some beer, you went to the store, you made a mistake, you started to talk, you asked a cop to buy you a pack. I don't know about you, but I knew so many people that would shoulder tap in high school, where they would just go to a liquor store and just ask like random people to buy them beer, and they would always go to the same fucking liquor store.
No, dude, no.
And eventually they would find people who like would buy the beer.
Yeah.
And so, but it was so funny because I could just imagine like my friends like being busted for like asking a cop that they didn't realize was a cop. Now, I don't think a cop would actually bust someone for shoulder tapping, but they might get really mad at them and call their parents.
It just seems too
but it's such like a thing that I remember of just like my friends being like, yeah, we're gonna go try and shoulder tap.
The funny thing about Biomag to me is like, so I was obviously reading reviews and stuff about this album, and people are like, they're just a Bad Religion knockoff. And I was like, I mean, I guess I kind of see it, but not really. And it wasn't until I was thinking about it earlier and I was like, Biomag kind of sounds like Modern Man. I don't know who wrote what first, but I was like, I kind of hear it now. Like, damn it.
Except for the lyrics, like Bad Religion would never write these lyrics. But it's like such a silly song.
Yeah.
It's such a silly song, and they like never played it. I've never heard them play it live. Like, never heard them play it live. And so just to, you know,
it is an EP. I mean, there's a lot of more loose rules for that kind of stuff. They're like, we're just sticking stuff to the wall to see if it sticks. So
I think we spent too much time on Biomag. So let's go to
I'm
the
just
next
confused
song.
by it. Okay.
It's a funny song. That it's a silly song, and that's really all I have to say about
Yeah.
it.
Okay.
It's a palate cleanser.
I was like, okay, let's just move to Countdown because it obviously is such a much better song.
Right, and then Countdown is just like it encapsulates.
Yeah, I think it's probably
the
one
early
of the
90s
better written songs on this album.
Yeah,
Like I like how it kind of breaks down in like almost like in rhyming, and then it has a really like singable chorus, and then it kind of still follows that same pattern without being redundant. So it's interesting throughout the whole thing, and it's still very catchy and full of earworms and stuff, and it still works.
Well, and not just that, but like again, it's almost still a very relevant song.
Yeah.
Maybe some things aren't as prescient as they were then, but like just the first verse, another home is lost from someone who is poor, still happens all the time. People are losing their homes. Another body found for the government to ignore, right? Like there's an epidemic of people of color who basically society doesn't care about, who who are missing persons, and that sort of thing. Who was that? It was like a month ago where there was that couple, they were in like Utah or whatever.
Oh yeah, the one that lived in the van and
right.
panel. Yeah.
Right. And then she disappeared, and there was a huge manhunt for her and her boyfriend. Did you know they discovered like 9 other missing persons?
Yes.
Like during that, like, isn't that absolutely ridiculous?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Why aren't we looking for these other people?
Yeah, there's a ton of missing people and like trafficking going on. It's just unreal.
There could be so much good done, but a pretty white girl gets missing, and there's like a little mystery between what happened and all that, and the nation's concerned, so now we do stuff.
It's like not everybody gets the FBI,
right? And then the very next line is another cop beating up an innocent. Like hasn't changed.
No, they literally list like every social issue possible in this song, which is actually kind of impressive.
Yeah, like and they're like social issues that we haven't even made progress, and maybe in some of them we've actually like stepped back from progress. Another law that seems to make no fucking sense. Well, that's always going to happen.
Yeah, my favorite one, I think I really like, just because I think it's super relevant today, but almost like media exhaustion, because I'm like a news junkie. But like it says, like, newspaper headlines, do they tell us what is wrong or what is right or what is wrong? I want to know exactly what the fuck is going on. It's like,
right.
Yeah, I love straight facts. I don't like flowery language. I don't, hate clickbait.
Yeah, I like straight facts too. I don't like being told what is right or what is wrong.
I just want kind of really dry nonfiction kind of facts when it comes to things, and I have certain things that I prefer and like, but at the same time, it's like, no, just tell me what the fuck is going on. Like, especially with like court cases, like I don't want opinions on court cases. Like, to me, I want to know things that are being recorded, like laws that are being considered, like what people actually said. I hate opinion-based news so much.
I feel like the media doesn't trust their readers anymore, or their viewers, right? Like they have to insert opinion, they have to slant the news. Just like, and it's all media now. It used to not be that way. Obviously.
It also says like the media has built a fortress around all of our minds. If I see it broken before,
totally,
I lay down and die. Yeah,
totally. Like what a great line.
I feel like that's definitely grown exponentially since 1993, just because we don't consume media in the same way anymore.
Right. Well, we went from newspapers, which were much more I would say less emotion based, because you
No.
don't necessarily hear the tone of voice of the person writing it. It was much more, here is a fact and we verified it type of thing, or here's what happened.
You know, you have to put as many factual things in a small amount of space in a newspaper, you know.
Now we can get like some news broadcaster who's like, oh, did you hear about this? And like just their tone of voice immediately colors how you may or may not feel about something. Which was why I don't watch like news programs. Like I have to read it.
Yeah, I like certain things. Like I love world news a lot, even though that can still be seen through a certain kind of lens. But it's like, yeah, I would like to know what else is going the fuck on besides.
When you watch world news, you're more detached because it's not your country, right?
But it
you're
could be, and that's why it's important.
Right, exactly, right? Like it could be. No, I get it, but like you know what I'm saying? Like it's like, oh, we can kind of take a step back and see things a little more objectively because we're not like a part of the situation.
Yeah, I love local news and I love world news. Like
I do like local
it's
news.
Literally the best of both worlds. You're like, okay.
I agree.
Yeah, that exhaustion is very real in that song. I'm like, yes.
I've got a feeling, I've got a bad feeling inside, right?
Yeah.
Like that's how the news makes you feel. Like it's just like
I have to take breaks from that as well. I also really like that channel on TikTok where it's like it's like only kind of bad news, but they break it to you really well and just
I don't think I've seen that. One thing that I've been wanting to do on TikTok. So with TikTok, I try to play the algorithm game, and I make multiple accounts for different like subjects.
Yeah. Oh, it's called Good Morning Bad News. That's what it is.
I need to see that
because
one.
They're like, guess what? Everything's sex. Like that's how they start out at the gate. And you're like, so when you actually do get the bad news, you're like, you very much see it coming.
Well,
it's the approach that I like a lot.
Right. I'm gonna add that to my news TikTok feed. So I have one where it's just like news stations.
Yeah, I like the Band-Aid ripoff approach. Like we're just gonna rip it, we're gonna do it.
Yeah,
this is shitty. So respectable in that sense. What's our next song? Let's see. This next song to me is really interesting, and I feel like it's very relevant today. It's called Hazardous to Yourself, and it's really about people. It's really about your classic like 90s health nut person, right? But I feel like Susan Powders. was that era?
Remember her? Wow, that's a name I haven't heard that were in like 30 years. Yeah. Well, she was like really hyped up. Like I just remember her just being like,
or like
wow,
Jane Fonda. Really... Oh my god, I remember that. Like my mother was like obsessed with her.
Oh, she had those aerobic videos.
Yeah, but then like we found out like several years later it wasn't real at all. She's had like some really good work done. I'm like, I mean, it's just sad that you couldn't really be honest about those things back then. It wasn't even that long ago.
But there's a lot of things in here that I feel almost like parallel.
Oh yeah,
today
it is
today. Like
it makes you so self-aware in bad ways.
Well, no, here's a verse. Stay locked in your room all day, your warped imagination. Stacks of books are piled high with useless information. Let your anxiety tell you what is good and bad for you. Let paranoia tell you what to do. I think of people who read false information about vaccines, for example, right? Or other types of conspiracies, and because they have anxiety about it and they're reading literally useless information, that's what they're thinking about. And now their paranoia is telling them, I mean, like, you could almost like put this into any sort of conspiracy theorist mindset and anxiety or anti-vax mindset, or any sort of medical woo type mindset.
It's
out there
at the very base level hypochondriac.
right.
Like I'm slowly dying at all times.
Well, aren't we all?
I mean, we are, but like the fixation of it, I guess, is
exactly. But it's just such an interesting song that was written about not about today, but you can read it into it and it still works.
Yeah.
And
I think I describe it as what I call mental gymnastics, like you know what you're supposed to do. You're not supposed to treat your body like trash, but like on the flip side, trash feels great. And that's my problem is like I know what I'm eating well, sleeping, and doing all the things that we're supposed to do as human beings. Like I function better as a person, but drinking beer and eating like a straight up like cheeseburger at 2 a.m. feels fantastic.
Sometimes you got to do that though, right? Like every once in a while you got to just like you got to give into it. Like I get stressed out if I don't occasionally indulge myself.
Oh God, yeah.
Right, like I start feeling like, man, and so like I get like less like weird cravings.
Oh yeah, I will.
If I actually do occasionally indulge, I don't binge. See, that's the thing. If I like, let's say I eat super healthy for like 2 or 3 weeks, well then I'm gonna binge out. But if like once or twice a week I have a cinnamon roll,
oh fuck yeah,
I tend or something like that, like a pastry or a candy bar, right? Then I tend to not get into these moods where I need to eat like the nastiest like foods ever.
I try to do the 80-20 rule. It's like 80% good, 20% bad.
The other thing is like I could see someone reading reading the lyrics to this song and thinking that people like people who want to wear masks and get the vaccine, thinking that those people are the crazy ones, right? Because it is about like health nuts and people who want to, right? Like here's a
misinformation period, like
but here's a line right here. Signed a petition to get smokers out of here. I got the figures on secondhand smoke death rate every year. Can't go outside my room, I just can't leave. I'm too afraid that I will get some weird disease. And I could see like a certain group of people saying, see, those people, all they want to do is stay inside because they don't want to get COVID.
It's also people that like health police other people are just obnoxious,
right. And then there's some places where you should do that, like a hospital. Like those are the health police, aren't they? Like
yeah. I mean, obviously there's rules for some reasons, but like specific reasons, but like we obviously grew up at a time where people smoked when
a lot of smoking.
Honestly, it doesn't bother me because I did at one time kind of smoke, so like, and I would eat, so it personally wouldn't bother me, but I would never expect that from just anybody.
I was thinking about this earlier today because I was walking to my car and I smelled a cigarette, right? And my thought was like, who smokes cigarettes anymore? Right. And then I see the person smoking and they're like older than me. And I'm like, oh, of course. Right. But I don't see young people smoking. They're vaping. I see them vaping.
Yeah. I see a lot more people vaping.
Right. And like vaping is much more socially acceptable, I guess now.
I think it's less invasive, because it dissolves really quick. It's not a lingering thing.
Right. And if anything, you get like, ooh, what's that smell of mango in the air or something, right? But yeah, but in general, like I definitely don't see smokers as much. And I guess that's good. I don't know the health risks of vaping compared to smoking.
Mostly it's worse, but that's what I'm saying. But that's just it. I don't know. And then I think if you get fixated on those things, you're like,
yeah, I don't know if it's worse or not. They say it's worse, But who's saying that? Is that the tobacco lobby telling me that it's worse so that they can sell more cigarettes? Like,
Yeah, this song reminded me of one weird pet peeve I've had. I hate when people online, they're like, if you want to eat waffles, then you should eat this, or if you want to eat this, then you should eat this. And I'm like,
no, I just want to eat that.
It's not, you shouldn't really tell people like specifically like things to do or products to eat. I'm like, just read the fucking labels. All you got to do. You can really pretty much eat anything as long as you know what the fuck you're eating. That's most of it. Like, am I eating a bunch of chemicals? Yes or no? Cool. You know the difference. I don't think they're that dumb.
Well, I don't know. I think some people just don't care. Right. Like, yeah. I think it's more, I think that's more of the case. It's like some people are like, I just don't care. Right. Yeah. Especially if they think they're healthy or they're feeling healthy. I don't know. Right. Like, and I have to say, I don't know a lot because I really don't a lot of times. I try now at this age in my life to eat less processed foods. Right? Yeah. Like I always figure the more processing a food gets, it's probably not as good for you as, say, like, something that is fresh and grown.
Yeah, or grown, or like
right
has 5. I like to get stuff to like 5 ingredients. Like,
well, I'm very much like if I make my own food, which I do pretty much every night.
Yeah,
like it's gonna be grilled meat, fresh vegetables, and like either rice or
like a grain of some sort.
Typically rice. I'm a rice person, right? I like rice. Though I did have some mac and cheese last night. That was pretty good. It was very good. A big bowl of mac and cheese, some broccoli, and some barbecued chicken. It was really good.
I have no regrets.
Right? I have none. Absolutely not. Tonight I'm having pasta. So, but I digress. But that's a great song.
Yeah, but don't sit in your room and beat yourself up about like eating mac and cheese. As I'm saying, like I feel like this is
that and like try to get the best information that you can get to make the best decisions, and don't. And I know it's hard for people to let go of like some sort of like types of anxiety and paranoia.
Yeah, I relate to the mental gymnastics of it, especially like right now since I'm like trying to lose weight for the wedding.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I probably should have done that the other night, but like whatever.
Right, but don't beat yourself up over it, and get just the best information you can. And getting the best information you can is good advice, whether it's your diet or your politics or what kind of car you need to drive. Right, just get the best information you can.
Like what's realistic,
Yeah.
Like,
well, what's reasonable. That I'm very much a fan of like, okay, what's a reasonable thing, right? Like, and what's unreasonable, and following that kind of line of logic. But what about the next song, the title track?
I mean, I think it's just it's kind of like
the daily grind.
It's the thesis statement of the album.
Yep.
Like it's literally about how you're going about the daily grind, going to a thankless job, seeing, that it kind of gets you nowhere. even if you're feel like you're moving towards a goal or something, but it's like you don't want to complain. But, you're kind of questioning what's it worth,
well, it's not only that, but like it's sort of also how the daily grind distracts you from other things, important things, like the very last verse. On the other side of town, people are sleeping on the ground, fighting wars that can't be won. 12-year-old boy with a gun, look not far and you will find a tragedy, the daily grind. Right. It's so like when people are working, 8, 9, 10 hour days,
Yes.
and then they're in traffic, and then they go home and they're tired, right? You don't have time to think about,
Anything else.
homelessness, violence, wars.
Yeah.
All you want to do is get some rest and start over the next day.
Yep, it's basically being stuck in a capitalist state.
Totally. And you know, this is also sort of this early 90s recession mentality as well, where it seems like when the times are tough, the hope is down and the price goes up. Well, shoot, I mean, the price is going up right now.
Oh, fuck it.
Gosh, everything is so expensive.
Yeah, I was watching something the other day. They're like, the prices during the pandemic were apparently supposed to go away. And I was like, yeah, right. If people were paying that, that's not how things work.
No.
It was like, it's not how that works at all.
You would need like a massive recession for prices to really like a depression, like a total collapse.
And which
happens all the time. It will happen again. Like the last one the big one was in 2008, 2009. We are probably due. So let's hurry, get it over with.
You're like, what's another one, right?
Yeah. But yeah, you're right. It is the thesis for this album. And it pushes on a lot of the other themes that we've already talked about, sort of the beer and pretzels politics of life.
Yeah, I kind of wonder why they didn't put it earlier in the album, but
well, like you said, it's the thesis. Well, I guess if it is the thesis, you want that first. So
yeah, but the first 3 songs blend really well. So I mean, I could see it either way, honestly.
Yeah.
So, okay, so Feeding the Fire is
amazing song.
Amazing song.
It's the best song on the record, in my opinion. This is my favorite No Use for a Name song on this album, even though it's only a No Use for a Name album. I don't know
honestly
why I
said my favorite out of all of them. It's the first song I've ever heard by them. Yeah. So when I got into No Use for a Name, I thought they were more of like a hardcore band, honestly.
Okay.
I mean, I was like 16, 17, so to me this was like hardcore. And their shows were very much like that, I think, as well. I think I saw them 2001, 2002.
Okay, that makes sense.
So it was like this and Legend Con Carne, and maybe they had another album coming out. Like
I think they had another album out at that time. Let me just.
But they mostly played songs like this. Like this was most of their set.
They had a lot of. I mean, they're a fast band, right?
Yeah.
They are a fast band. They had Making Friends and More Betterness had been out.
Yeah, I think
also. And those albums are also pretty. Making Friends is a pretty fast record, and More Betterness is also pretty good.
Yeah, I think it was after Making Friends, like shortly after that.
Yeah,
but yeah, it was really weird seeing them the second time because I was like, this was not the experience that I had.
No, I don't know what happened. I feel like Tony Sly got vocal lessons or something, or maybe like singing the way he did wasn't great on his voice, so he kind of changed
that happens
style
a
little bit. But I like it. And they made it work in a really good way. But if the daily grind is the thesis, then Feeding the Fire is the conclusion to that essay.
Yeah,
because it's like, I'm not feeding the fire anymore, which is the very last line. It's almost like, fuck the daily grind. I don't give a shit about these health food magazines. I don't care about, not necessarily not caring about homelessness, but like, I don't care about all these distractions. I'm going to go do things the way I want to do it now. And I'm not going to live in this capitalist fucking hamster wheel.
I think it's a really good song. I mean, I don't think it dives too deep on like what, like specifically it is frustrated about, but I think it paints a really good picture of being stuck and frustrated, period.
Well, and then burning it all down, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I listened to this a lot when I was like in a very, very high depressive state.
Right. Well, and it has one of my favorite like lyrics in any song. People that don't live off the words that are said by someone else, because talking shit is so bad for your health.
It is.
I love those lyrics. It is. Talking shit is bad for your health. And
I hate negative people, even though I do love, I specifically love complaining about work. That feels good. But
that's just venting. Right? That's healthy. That's healthy. But you're right. Like I used to be kind of a negative person. I hung out with a lot of like, when I was younger, like goths, and goths love to just complain. And I'm sorry if I'm like totally stereotyping like gothic subculture, but the goths that I hung out with, they just complained all the time about everything in their lives, and not just their lives, but other people who they felt were like normies, and just like it was so negative. And like I had like this negative mindset too, where I wanted to do that. And it wasn't until like maybe like some really bad things happened in my life where I had to sort of rethink things, that I was like, okay, I'm just going to be more of a positive person as far as like how I live and act.
This is draining.
Well, yeah, it is draining. And when you change your mindset, when you go from being a negative person to like more of a positive person, you become that person. And it sounds weird to say, but it's very true. Like you are what you eat, and you are what you think. And I know some people are be like, well, when I was depressed, I just thought about being depressed. But then when I tried to not be depressed, which is hard, right? I tried to make positive changes, and the more positive changes I made, the less depressed I was. And some people are like, well, you just can't do that. Some people, it's a chemical imbalance. It's true. It's very true. But I think some of it is definitely a mindset, and it's hard to change that mindset.
Yeah.
And obviously, I'm not a psychologist or a doctor.
Train your brain to do it because you don't know how, or like naturally.
Right. And like whatever you fill your days with and your mind with, that's what you become. Totally. No, I think that's true. And it's true for anyone.
It even in like a mystical way. So like the Mexican idea of the eye, it's like when you're around negative people, you're like kind of this sponge that holds on to it. So like it's almost like a cautionary tale of being around that will eventually just kind of wear you down and kind of make you start thinking like that. So it's like you want to keep that shit away from you is how that works, you know?
Well, I definitely think you can program yourself, right? And I don't know if that makes sense. Like I look at the brain like a computer. If I give my computer certain programs, the output will be the sum total of those programs. At least that's how I kind of look at it.
It must be nice to be a programmed positive person all the time.
I get right. I don't know, like that's like a mindset I've kind of gotten in the last 10 years, right?
No, I had to learn myself. That's why I was like, I wonder what it's like if you just like that.
So sometimes just like going with it works instead of just looking at the negative of things. But again, like I know that sort of thing won't work for everyone, and I want to say that, like, you know, like I just want people to know that I don't necessarily believe that just thinking positively will make you a positive person.
I think it's a good practice. Because like I will say, like, it's something you practice. It's not something you can just do and live 100% of the time. God no.
Right. And it's not healthy to always just be positive. Sometimes you have to just get into these other emotions.
You gotta let that shit out.
Right. That's the healthy thing. But No Use for a Name, I feel encapsulates that, where they decided with the last song on this record, Feeding the Fire, that, hey, I'm not going to give in to all these other things that society is throwing at me. I'm going to go my own way. I'm not feeding the fire anymore.
They're tired of it and they're like, I'm just going to spontaneously combust. Like, fuck it. I've always thought about that too. They're just like, fuck it. Let's just burn everything to the ground.
It's called venting. This is a good album. It is a short record. Like I said at the beginning, it is an album where I believe No Use finally finds their sound, and they stick with it for about 3 albums before they start really evolving again. And they kind of take more of a pop.
Kind of. I would say it's like they like hardcore skate punk has like its thrashy parts, but also its equal melodic parts. And I think they just lean into melodic so much harder than anything else.
And but that doesn't change. Like, even then, their later albums, they're not like, still not fast, and they're still not like hard, like, because they are, right, like they're still like fast. And that's the one thing about No Use for Name, is they're just a fast
it's like
band.
25% fast upbeat and then like 75% melody. You know, switch their dials,
right? And I love the singing, I love the melodies, and the guitar work is so good, and the drumming is so good on all these records. And I definitely recommend this album as a starter for anyone who wants to get into No Use. Not necessarily the first 2 records, because those records are, like I said, very different. The first one is like, the first time I listened to their first record, Incognito, I was like, this doesn't sound like No Use for a Name, but there's like hints of No Use for a Name. You know what I mean? Like, there's a song called DMB. It's the very first song on that record. That's 100% a No Use for a Name like style song that you could be like, yeah, that's a great No Use track. But then there's like other songs that just sound kind of weird the way they sing it, because they had multiple vocalists, right? So it was different.
Like Soulmate's probably one of my other favorite songs. I feel like it's kind of like a really good in between mix of what they do, even though it's still a little earlier. But
Soulmates is a great song. Did you know that was the first Fat Records music video on MTV?
Oh my god, I even forget they had music videos.
Has that
No Use for a Name had videos? Yeah, I think I saw like 2 on YouTube or something, and I was kind of like browsing.
They got a few, I think.
Yeah, I was like,
They got a couple. I know Fat Records used to make music videos for their bands. I don't know if they still do. Like, my friend had like a VHS of a bunch of Fat Records music videos.
I still collect the DVDs with like punk compilations on them and stuff, just because I don't remember a lot of that stuff. And then also it's not always on YouTube and things like that. So I was like,
a little rare. Also the old skater videos, and those always had punk music. Like, I know so many people,
killer bands without fail,
right? I know so many people that were skaters before they were punks. And they got into punk rock because they would buy skate videos. Right? They're like, oh yeah, I bought this and it had like Pennywise on it, and that became my favorite. It's like, oh okay.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, no, it's like a very good gateway drug. Oh, speaking of, somebody on Amazon, when I was looking through the album, it's like, I recommend the CD to any punk fan. I heard these guys on the first Moto soundtrack, Moto Crossing, I guess.
Oh yeah. No Use. That's awesome.
I was like, oh shit, it's like the other Tony Hawk.
It was like Dave. There was like a Dave
one,
BMX biking game. I think I had that
too. I don't.
That game those games were fun. Those games were enjoyable.
But I was like, oh shit, they were on a video game soundtrack way back in the way back. I totally didn't know that, so that was kind of cool.
Right. Yeah, I know a lot of people who got into punk rock through those soundtracks too. So especially like the Tony Hawk soundtracks, they're like, oh, this is cool. I think that kind of wraps it up. No Use for a Name is it's one of my favorites, so I'm always going to be having a good time when I talk about them.
Yeah, I think they're a really interesting band, and sometimes they kind of slip under the radar, but I think they're like a fan favorite. I think of like Fat Records, like
I think old
you either get
school
it or you
Fat
kinda
Records
don't.
fans always love them. I don't know about newer Fat Records fans, but I think people who've been around and listened to them, they're definitely one of the most important bands on that had been on Fat, especially with like sort of like the sound of Fat Records, because I still in my head the sound of Fat Records is Lagwagon, Propagandhi, and No Use for a Name. The sort of the first three bands,
Yeah.
or like maybe not the first three, but like those are the bands that I think of first. And I went to their 13th anniversary show, Fat Records, back in the early 2000s. I don't remember the year. It was like 2002, 3, or 4, or something like that.
Did you go to the one where they did like No Use for a Name and Friends for the anniversary, the 20?
No, I didn't do that.
Yeah.
But I went to the Fat 13.
Okay.
With No Use. I want to. I don't think that was the last time I saw them, but it was like No Use. It was an amazing show. It was No Use, Lagwagon, Propagandhi, and NoFX. It was a pretty good. It was a pretty good show.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
It's the only time I've ever seen Propagandhi. Yeah, it's the only time I've seen them live. Only time. I've never caught them any other times. And it's just it's either I wasn't thinking about Propagandhi or what. But
how dare you? How dare you in this How to Clean Everything hoodie say that to me?
Well, yeah, I don't know. It's just like one of those things. I just always seen them once live.
Yeah, they don't tour here, I don't think, a whole lot. I've actually seen them in Texas a good handful of times, but any other time I was supposed to see them usually was like either in Canada, which makes sense, or like on a bigger festival like Punk Rock Bowling or something. Which I hope
they were supposed to be there, and then they canceled. I don't know if I'm going to go. I have no idea how these things are going to work out. There's so many other things that I want to do that cost money. And like, I would love to go. I would love to go. It depends on who's playing this next upcoming year. What's our next so then it's Another Day in Paradise.
Yeah, I think we're gonna we're gonna air that episode, and then we're gonna do Strung Out. Cool. So let's look forward to our next episode, which will be Strung Out after this, and then we have so many more albums to go.
we've got years of content.
Yeah, we're still in the 90s, so I think we're good.
Right, it's gonna take us a while to get out of like 1993. Shoot.
I know, so many albums they just like splattered them everywhere.
1990 like 2 through like 1996 was just so much new punk rock.
Yeah, and that was like the heaviest revival too. So
yeah,
good Lord.
we got some stuff to chew on.
Yeah, I think about that right now with ska. Like there's so many ska labels right now that have like popped up or just like, I think we've bought 20 ska albums.
No kidding.
Which is probably the most I've bought since
1997.
Probably. Yeah. So it's a little out of control. So I have a feeling in 10-20 years someone will be doing the same with like Bad Time Records.
I hope so.
Right? I hope so too. For Fest we did one full day of basically just Bad Time artists, and I was exhausted, and it was fantastic. Awesome. So but yeah. All right. Well, thanks for getting mini wrecked.
Yeah, that was a good time. I had a
little wrecked, a little
half wrecked.
Half wreck.
Just a hangover, just a tiny hangover.
I was like, just a couple of drinks at dinner.
How could people get in touch with us?
Oh yes, I am on social media.
I'm also on social media.
Yeah, I was like, we could just do easy like link in bio.
Yeah, you can check the link in bio, and you can see all of our social medias. And if you want to ask us questions, or you have a specific album that you think we should talk about that we haven't, even though we just started. All right, I guess we should sign off. I'm Daniel Allen Lazarus.
I'm Allison.
And everyone go get wrecked.
Right, cool.